I shall move the mic a bit closer. No doubt our colleagues at the back will turn me up if I'm a bit quiet. Thank you very much. And welcome to Love Light Norwich. This is our symposium. We've got lots of really great speakers here for you today. My name's Stefan Gurney. I'm the Executive Director of Norwich Business Improvement District, and we've obviously been keen putting the Love Light on. So thank you all very much for coming. I've got the first exciting job of the day for housekeeping, so I shall do my best air steward piece of going, the exits you may see are here and there. There are no planned fire drills or any evacuation, so if the alarms do sound, please make your way safely using the closest exit. And colleagues from the hall have advised that they will come through and make sure that you are all out before going on. So the public conveniences are just to the left and to the right outside, and the assembly point, I've been told, is by the bollards out on the front court. So that's where we should gather together should we need to evacuate. I think I've covered everything with that one. So I'm going to start. I'm just going to run through very quickly what Norwich BID is, or Norwich Business Improvement District. I make no expectations that anyone will understand fully what a BID is or how it works, so this is my very potted, quick history of it. And I do apologise that we've got glorious sunshine, even though there are thunderous winds and other things coming, so you will have absolutely no sight of what any of the slides are. It's the point where you're not supposed to wish for darkness, but maybe that will help, and it will obviously help later on today when we have some of the beautiful projections and artworks out and about. At the moment, that's a very boring holding slide, so don't worry about that. I've just sort of give a bit of an idea. You won't be able to see any of this, so I shall talk to the slide that no one can see. Basically, the geographical area that Norwich BID covers is pretty much the inner ring road. The BID is run by businesses for businesses, and we work to a 5-year business plan, and the businesses get to vote on whether we carry on every 5 years. Last time we did it in 2017, we got 94% supporting the BID, so that's really great news. And that gives us roughly 5 million over 5 years to do these projects. To help support that, we also draw in additional funding, and we've drawn in funding to support Love Light, both from sponsors and from the Arts Council England as well, to be able to put this on. I should just say, if any of the businesses are here today, we do renew in 2022, so please support the BID again so we can do magic things like this again. Just quickly running through some of the pieces that the BID does. We do 3 main areas. One is the promotion of Norwich, and we do that through several of our different channels, the main one being Visit Norwich, which the BID runs. And we do other pieces such as the City of Stories, the branding of the city, social media, the Norwich map. We do campaigns nationally as well, so it would be beautiful here, the vision that you can't see of our YouTube campaign, which had a view rate for 21 of 28%, and the sort of average advertising is about 9% to give the context to it. 3.96 million seconds were watched of our YouTube campaign, and just to put that in context, 211% above target. My marketing team tell me they love a good stat. That's always handy to have, so it's been really successful. Visit Norwich also has different channels that we work to, over 280 pieces of local national PR coverage, which have been included in The Guardian, Telegraph, Channel 4, The Times Travel, even Lad Bible and Netflix, I'm told as well, which is clearly I'm their demographic for that one. I should say that in September, October, November last year, we saw a 99% increase in users compared to the same period in 2019, which is a great thing to show how we're starting to come out of the pandemic and how people are interested again in looking at different spaces. We saw a huge push towards seaside destinations against urban city centres, with one exception, which was Norwich, against the whole of the national context. So the top 5 were seaside destinations, and the only one that was a city in there was Norwich. So a brilliant piece of how we are pushing Norwich on the national scale. To give the sort of context of exciting page views, and everyone loves a good stat. 525,000 page views for Visit Norwich in those 3 months. And our Instagram has grown 200% since 2020. So we're making sure that we're using all the different channels to connect with the different audiences. Not only do we do the promotion and the marketing and PR of the city, we also do a lot of stuff on behalf of the businesses and creating that voice for business. We do things like we provide the free Wi-Fi in the city centre in all the urban areas. We have put in some new totems and city wayfinding. We're now working with the County Council to put 50 across the city to create a new wayfinding scheme. And that's part of the Transforming Cities funding. That's £59 million that have been brought in to help support the city. And part of that being given directly to the bid to be able to deliver some of those projects. We do some different projects like EU-funded Upcycle Your Waste schemes, and we were here a few months ago talking to audiences about upcycling in the city as well. So the areas that we cover are quite diverse. We always have to do the good thing of metrics. Everyone always wants to know, so how are you proving that you're doing any of this? So we have live city data that we put on our website, which shows current car park usage, park and ride usage, city centre footfall, and even we've looked at how long it takes to do a lap of the inner ring road and use that as a measure to see how congested the city centre is. So all these data help us understand how the city's faring and be able to contrast it to where we've been before, and then obviously predict hopeful future trends. We've obviously deal in lots of different areas as well, so we've got footfall, vacancy, access to the cities, and we were very pleased in the last few days that the Centre for Cities came out and said weekends to Norwich city centre are higher now than they were before the pandemic. So it really is starting to show that the cities are opening up and we're starting to come back and use our cities again. We do lots in collaboration. We work, and you probably won't necessarily see that, but it's a very beautiful graphic that I did myself on PowerPoint, which shows all the different partners that the bid works with, from Greater Anglia to New Anglia to city councils to county councils to national levels to the EU partnerships. So the collaborative stretch and sphere of influence of the bid is quite a substantive different thing. So at some point, I'm sure the sun will go in. We do different things about animating the city as well. So is the experience, once you get here, is it safe, enjoyable? Is there lots going on? Is it animated? And Love Light is one of those perfect examples. But we do lots of city-wide events. So you can see here the projections on the city, or you can't, but I'll tell you to it anyway. It's a beautiful projection there of us onto the castle. There's people walking through the Tunnel of Light. We have the Run Norwich 10K, which I believe has sold out today. The Open General has already sold out. So it opened today and has already sold out. So all these events animate the city. We do specific pieces around what we call Head Out Not Home, and it's great to see Marcus and Norca who put that on for us here today, where we do a lot of stuff around the music of the city and animating spaces in the city to make it as entertaining during the weekdays and weekends as we can. We do a lot of the city-wide events, so we do the Love Light Festival, and we've supported some of the larger film festivals in the city. We've supported the Norfolk Norwich Festival, and there's a lovely image of a man walking across a tightrope in the city. No doubt you can all see it, so that's fine. I can't quite describe a white silhouette of a man across a cityscape. I also wanted to put in some images now of what Love Light will be, to try and set a little bit of a scene, and some of the artists following me will talk through their installations. It's one of those things that I have now a whole deck of slides which you would have been able to go, oh, that's really interesting, that looks really exciting. You can't see them. So it's a cathedral with an animation on it, and Nick Exidis has come back again with Project Technique to do the projections onto the front of the cathedral. We have the Norwich Puppet Theatre doing their cycles. We have Illuminos doing Cupid Castle, so they will do projections onto the front of the castle, which will obviously animate and use the castle as a canvas, which will be an amazing visual identity. We've got Graffiti Nicola Dick doing the mobile light, and that was to be projected onto buildings, but it's, I believe now, will be in St Andrew's Hall, and she does live projections and draws and animates the space onto the thing as you're watching it. So it's not just a set animation, it's a live mobile light event. We have Dave Perry doing the Winter Wonderland. I believe that's here as well, which is an ice sculpture, which I've got a lovely slide of again, which you can't see. And I'll keep going through my beautiful slide deck, and I'll have to do my best description to try and explain what it is. We have also Tim Davies, Ocho, and ISO, which is clean, which are very difficult to describe. The picture we have here is a large sort of blow-up octopus that is mounted on top of a man that you can walk through the city and will be animated. Clearly you can't see that, but it's a very visually impactful slide. I'll keep going and do my best. We've got the laser glyphs. I won't steal the thunder because I know the artists are here, so I'll get them to talk to it. But we've got the signings, and we'll put up the image of them projecting onto a cliff, and they'll use their visualizations hopefully later to animate that for you. We've got Greg Holloway and the Amber Light Seed of Life, which we had last time, and he's doing a brand new one for this year as well. And the last slide I have is of Piff Paff, which is the Celestial Sound Cloud, which is to be in Chapperfield Gardens, which is as people move around within the art piece's sound alters and the light alters to reflect the number of people that are there, and the movement within it alters the piece and gives different illuminations and different soundscapes within that. So I shall be the one of the people marshalling on the day tomorrow, so I look forward to being part of that as well and to do it. So I've walked very quickly there through what a bid is, how it works, and all the pieces we do, while doing it solely in the medium of whiteout, which is really handy to do. I'm slightly nervous for all the other people coming after me, and hope that they get a bit more dark by the time, because obviously doing a slideshow without any slides is quite difficult to do. I'm going to now hand over to Shaun, PRICKIMAGE, and VJ Outlaw to do their piece, and I'm hoping that we can do as best as we can with that. Shall I hand over? Do you want the clicker? Do you want to take the microphone and talk, or are you going to stand where you are?
Because I think someone else was going to do this bit.
We will get one of my colleagues to... There you go.
Okay, thanks. Hello, my name is Shaun. I think I can get away from the projector if you all grab your trail map. Who has one? Well, I'll have to describe that to you as well. But anyway, look out for it. It's blue with the nice pink. Pink, red, there's discussion about what color it actually is. We're number 10 on the trail map, called Deathpleur. And look for the big smiley face. Look for the outlines of hands. We are giving, with a laser installation, it'll be very bright on Pottergate, number 6 Pottergate on the yard. And that's close to another one of the great installations in that area at St. Gregory's Church, I think. So the idea is we've called it Deathpleur. It's giving the deaf community a visual voice. That picture is a big, you can see the big smiley there, hopefully. So I did that on a cliff on a beach during lockdown, so it was a really kind of magical moment where I had the beach to myself and could fire lasers willy-nilly, and there was just the seagulls and the wind. But yeah, so the idea is it's a progression of other installations, but we've created something specific and unique for Norwich, and we've incorporated the Norwich community, both hearing and deaf. So we did a public call out with the Love Light Norwich group. And also I want to thank Norwich Bid as well for enabling all of this to happen. It's great there are a few cities around that enabling artists to interact with community, entertain the community, and embrace the community. Simon is going to, by the way, Simon is here. He is my collaborator for the Deaf Plur. He will talk a bit more in depth with how we engage the community and how the deaf community like to be included, and they want to come to events. They want to be part of events. You know, they don't just want to stand on the side of the party. So yeah, so if we go to the next one. So there's a couple of examples of the simplified hand signs that we used. So it was like peace, love, unity, and then respect. Simon will discuss them a bit more, just give you a bit of an overview. So in lockdown 1, I was given the opportunity to put an installation into a big unused retail building on the seafront of Margate. And there was a lot of talk, and obviously there was a lot of motions flying around, and I jumped at the opportunity to do something. And also I went jogging most days on the beach, and I saw so many people just walking around quite aimlessly. So I wanted to give them something to focus on, something a bit uplifting, something illuminating. So for a month, we had these words backlit that came on by timer, came on every night for the beachfront. So and there was an audio element also, which people could access via QR code, and I put the stickers around the seafront so people could listen and look across the beach. Normally, you know, in the summer, 100,000 people can come to that beach, but during lockdown there was like 5, maybe maximum at any one time. So it was a fantastic place to have a spacious contemplation moment. Oh, there's a video, yes. Hopefully you can see some of the video. So you can hear a little bit of the voice, which I use from the Margate community.
Peace, love, unity, respect.
So it's just showing some long distance shots of the building.
Peace, love, unity, respect.
There's a bit of crazy laser over the top of the building.
Unity, respect.
Peace, love, unity, respect. Peace, love, unity, respect.
Peace,
So this happened
love,
towards the end of
unity,
lockdown,
respect.
so we still couldn't encourage people to come together and appreciate. So basically we did it without telling anyone and just documented it. So we didn't want to create crowds, even though it was a big beach.
Love.
Thank you. And then what do we have next?
Freedom.
Oh yes, so stop that for a second. And then, so from that, yeah, so that was up for like a month over New Year's Eve, a particularly quiet period normally. And then more recently, I evolved the project and submitted it to Turner Contemporary in Margate, which is on the £20 note you might have noticed recently. So to have the opportunity to have the installation inside the Turner Contemporary for a few months as part of an open group show, and then also have the opportunity for one night have it on the outside of the building, which is an amazing opportunity. So I documented that well, and I think that leads nicely. Oh, let's look at that quickly, yeah, if we can. I'll try and talk you through it.
Respect.
Although imagine big, simplistic building with big words on it.
Respect.
Peace, love, unity,
So it's so beautiful having the whole
Peace,
community
love,
lend their
unity,
voice,
respect.
young, old, English speaking, non-English speaking. It was all, you know, really interesting. The more diverse, the better. In Margate, I had a lot more opportunity dealing directly with people, so I was encouraging them to speak naturally, speak normally, speak in their native language. Don't necessarily do the Queen's English, even though we love the Queen, but I like to hear people's real accents. You might notice I have a little one as well. So yeah, that's for Simon. So I think I hand over to Simon now. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of an overarch of the whole project. And Simon can discuss a bit more about the bringing in the deaf community and what they like to do. Thank you. Hopefully see you tonight.
Hello, everybody. We've got a lady over here with a microphone who's going to be my voice while I'm signing to you. So we've got the paper version of my speech, and I'm just going to be looking at that and sign as I go along. So my name is Simon Jones, and I was born profoundly deaf. I don't speak, I use sign language. The first thing I would like to say is I'm really happy to be involved with the Love Light project. It's a great opportunity for deaf people to be involved with this. So we've been creating something called Deaf Plur, and it's on over the weekend, and I hope you'll be able to see that and enjoy what we've created. So the first thing that I want to explain is what Plur is, P-L-U-R. So the first one is peace, love, unity, respect. So that's something, there's a strong rave culture that I've been involved in, and that started in America and now has spread and been very popular among Europe. Lots of people attend raves and have a great time and go to festivals as well. So that got me thinking, and I met and decided to create something. We've been working together as creative partners, and we created Deaf Plur from that concept of Deaf Rave. So maybe you're wondering about how deaf people can be involved. Hang on, just lost where I'm at now, wait a second. So Deaf Rave is sort of a rave with sign language. You might have seen an example, so I'm hearing people do the same. There's a lot of hand shapes, a lot of moving your hands about at a rave, sometimes to match the sound, sometimes not, because a little bit of signing, a little bit of people gesturing. So from my own deaf experience, a lot of deaf people like attending raves. That really appeals to us, that works well for us. And some deaf people, do they stand there in silence? No, they wait for the music to start, and then they get right in there, they get dancing, they want to be involved, they want to be a part of it, they want to drink, they want to chat. And we can sing sign songs, we can be involved with sign language versions. Some deaf people do like to create music as well. We like to party, that's something we definitely like. Can you move down to the next slide, please? So there's a little video here. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. It's dark enough. It's a bit fast, but I'm going to explain about Deaf Plur. So peace, there's a sign for peace. So it's important for us to explain a little bit about why we chose this as our phrase and why we chose those particular signs. So they're more rave-specific signs, because those are words that come up a lot, and these are common signs used both by deaf people and other people. A lot of deaf people have small raves organised for themselves, so small groups like mini raves. So one group that are very involved is they're called Deaf Rave. They've been set up from 2003, they were set up by somebody called Troy Lee, and he organised all the Deaf Rave events And the key thing is communication, for people to get together, meet up, catch up with what they've been up to. And it's lovely for deaf people to be involved and work together. And the deaf community itself is very, very small. When we all get together, there's very few of us really, but it's lovely to see each other. And we strongly believe in unity and working together and respecting each other. So it's really important for deaf people to be there, to be included. It doesn't matter. It's for them to attend. It's got to be something that they enjoy and something that you can respect all the people that attend. Could we move on to the next slide, please? So, deaf plur there, you see I'm wearing that. So maybe you're wondering about how deaf people and music, how does that work? Because we can't hear it, so what do we do? I'm sure you've all thought about that, but how does that work? So sometimes hearing people will ask me direct and say, aren't you in the wrong place, like this is a hearing person's party? And I'll go, no, I'm in the right place, I can be here, because people think that you can't enjoy sound at all and you can't dance if you don't have a hearing aid or a cochlear implant or anything. But when you're comfortable, when you're at home, sometimes even if you have a hearing aid when you're out and about, you can put the music on and then you can hear it and you can enjoy it. You can still make it work for you. Next slide, please. Sometimes my partner, who has a cochlear implant, will sing the lyrics to a song, or will enjoy reading them and go, oh, I see what they're saying there, that's nice. Sometimes they'll be chatting to their friends about music that they've heard. Sometimes they'll feel the vibrations, or if you're close to the speakers, then you can feel it through your body. Sometimes you'll be able to translate the lyrics or feel the vibrations and dance along. But the way we dance is a little bit different to the hearing people style. We create our own identity and our own character. We put that into the movements we do. It's important to understand the different elements of music. It could be hip-hop, could be house, or garage. There are many, many different styles. Drum and bass, we can feel that. And it could be fast music, could be slow, could be very noisy, could be quiet. We use our whole bodies to feel that music. So speaking to the local deaf community of Norwich, I wanted them to tell me a little bit about their story, about growing up, about their access to parties or raves. So at our installation that we've got over at Pottersfield, if you're interested to come to Pottersgate, we can tell you more about it, and I'll be able to tell you a little bit about the stories that I collected along the way. Moving on to the next slide, please. So I've included here a little bit of art and sort of the process of how we created these hand shapes from the original hands. And a lot of people have given their information and pictures, they've supplied their own hands, and they're very happy for them to be involved. I'm still happy for people to send in their hands if they want. We'll try and include them, do a quick sketch around the hand, and then we can include that into the installation. Film it on, and then I pass it over to Shaun. At the same time, he then films with the laser and the movement to give the 3D effect with the changing colours. And I'll be there to talk to people, to tell you a little bit about how we've made it, and maybe if you're interested to learn a little bit of sign language, I'd be happy to teach you. Especially the deaf plur signs. I hope to see you all there. And I hope it's just around the corner, Pottersgate, it's not far, so hopefully I'll see you there, seeing our work a little bit later. Thank you very much.
If I could now ask Adam Taylor from the garage to come up and do a little piece himself. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, and jazz hands, please.
Stefan, have you got the clicker? See how self-sufficient I can be, right? Hi. Hi, hello. Hi. Hi. My name's Adam. I'm Executive Director at the Garage Trust. For those that need description, I am a balding white man in blue trousers, a pink shirt, grey jacket, and I'll probably wander around the stage a little bit too much. During the course of the next 15 minutes, I'll play some videos. Those videos are black and white. They are single camera shots set to music. They're dancers, musicians, and performers. The Garage Trust. Our vision to change people's lives through art. Oh, I didn't make that work properly. I'll try it again. Just for anyone that didn't hear that, that was oh dear.
Improvise, do some improvising.
I'll do some improvising while we're waiting for these. Well, that's okay.
I did try it earlier.
Well,
Yeah, I think so.
that's okay. We don't need to worry. Okay, that's good. I do need the words though that you've walked off with. Words always helpful. The irony is not lost. A white, middle-class, cisgendered, non-disabled man talking about inclusion in the arts. But I'm here talking about the work of our charity, talking about the work that we do in our engagement, where we work hard to work with our friends, partners, participants, audiences. Our vision, like I said, to change people's lives through art. Whether this is about having an intervention with Jessica, a young person who faces challenging circumstances, or Eileen taking part in seated Pilates to improve her mobility, or Jacob joining in with Zumba, like me, to lose a little bit around the tummy. Last time I spoke about Zumba, Caroline Jarrell said she was going to come to Zumba classes with me, and she's not been this term. That's that. To lose a little bit around the tummy, or Michael engaging in adult drama to make friends. Our work is with our participants. The all-parliamentary I'm going to run at that sentence again and slightly slower, and then I won't stumble. The all-party parliamentary group on arts, health and well-being found that participation in arts programs had a huge impact on people's lives. Some data. 79% of people in deprived communities ate more healthily after they engaged in arts. 77% engaged in more physical activity, and 82% enjoyed greater well-being. These numbers are not insignificant. £1 spent on participatory arts activity in early years has been calculated to save £13 in future costs, improving people's lives immeasurably. No, well, not immeasurably, and 82%, somebody measured it. So, what does this mean for a little cultural venue in Chapelfield Gardens, or an even littler venue in a shopping precinct in Kings Lynn? Well, we use those as our springboards. These are our platforms in order to reach people around the world. We work across Europe to teach and upskill different cultural organizations in our methodology. A participant-centered approach using multi-agency activity. Working with cultural centers in Italy, Spain, in France, in both Paris and in Norwich's twin city, Rouen. We share our learning of working with our young people and how we work to change their lives. In workshops and in events, we speak about our practice, we take our young people. During the last 2 years, this has been largely remote. Although I was speaking in a conference in Barcelona, and it was slightly disconcerting because one had to present in a mask in an auditorium with 150 people, and it was slightly disorientating for everyone involved. My colleague Carrie Mansfield and I delivered a series of arts industry workshops in Pergola as part of an interdisciplinary arts festival with young people 15 to 19 years old. This was over Zoom and challenging, to say the least. But that seems unrelatable to Jonathan from NR5A at risk of NEET. Lots of my fictional characters begin with J, and I don't really know why, but I like the J names. One of the goals of the Garage Trust when it was created was to raise the aspirations of the young people around Norfolk, in particular those estates in Norwich. With funding that was raised through the Nelm Development Trust, now the Henderson Trust and colleagues from that organisation are in the room, alongside money from Arts Council England and the New Deal for Communities. We worked with the youth offending team in Norfolk and really put the first provision in place where we were using cultural activity to reach young people at risk of offending. This programme of activity was successfully pioneered and has grown quite substantially. My colleague Adam Yaxley, the Inclusion and Engagement Manager at the Garage Trust, supported by Children in Need, Foundation for Youth Music, Paul Hamlin Foundation, alongside support from Norwich Charities. We saw a mass expansion of this activity. We now work with 450 referral partners across the county, not just the local authority. Key successes of our intervention work is down to the removal of barriers. A young person, Katie, doesn't begin with a J, but let's go with Katie. She doesn't need to be from low income. She doesn't need to come from a particular postcode, or she doesn't need to be at risk of offending. She might just be having a really tough time at school. Her parents might be divorcing and she's really struggling to engage in the curriculum. Or cyberbullying and she's lost all semblance of self-esteem. Our approach is rooted in education theory from Petty, Race, Kolb, Maslow, basic and fundamental approaches to education and practice. None of this is revolutionary, but combining it in cultural activity, setting out to reach young people who face challenging circumstances, makes our little charity one of a kind. This is all much more engaging when it's interspersed by my really cool videos. We have a 92% progression rate from our intervention programs. We call these our creative foundations, and they would be in dance, music, and drama, the art forms in which we work. To progress onto our participatory programs, we have 117 weekly regular classes in Norwich and 55 weekly regular classes in our venue in King's Lynn, where we'll support the young people to engage, not just financially, but with mentoring and bursaries for clothes or shoe or activewear if they need it. 98% of our participants tell us that they have increased health and well-being as a result directly of our work. Some of these young people progress onto our HNC qualification. It's level 4 post A-level. And then they move onto dance and drama schools. There's a great case study on our website of a young person who did exactly that journey from Creative Foundations into our participatory program, into our HNC qualification, and is now in the first year at drama school. It's a truly inspiring story. Others progress out of the organisation. And I'm minded of a young man who came up to me in the youth arts team after a participatory Christmas show. He thanked us and said he wouldn't be back. The team looked somewhat anxious and concerned, but he expanded. He told them that he'd been accepted on a culinary course at City College, Norwich, and he was excited to start his journey. That he wouldn't have had the confidence to go to his interview if it had not been for the Creative Foundations program, and he, like his parents, would just be sitting at home. patrons like the exceptional Leighton Williams, coming to the Theatre Royal Norwich, with everyone talking about Jamie soon. It's a plug. I'm hoping for commission from Theatre Royal Norwich for that show. Or the prolific theatre producer Peter Wilson, producer of Inspector Calls, Woman in Black, or actress Susan Kidd, are essential on how we undertake our work. But arguably, more important than those, and that to our learner-centered approach, where it meets young people where they are. It sees them for who they are and all they can achieve. These are our ambassadors, like producer Richard Jordan and actor-composer Lloyd Gorman, who both grew up in the county, who faced the challenges that the young people who come through our doors each and every day face. It shows them in real flesh and blood their dreams truly can become a reality. We've had huge successes from our local enterprise partnership funded program, which we call Introduction to the Creative Industries, which supports young people through free training and mentoring programs. Those programs are based on one of our Master of the Arts modules, the Creative and Cultural Ecology, adding in mentoring these young people who are under 30 and out of work, most with degrees or postgraduate degrees, but are unable to gain employment in the cultural sector, even in entry-level roles. Following this 12-week program of coaching and classes, we have a 75% progression rate into employment. We continue to challenge ourselves to do better. We have just engaged an agent for change to work with the executive and the governance of the Garage Trust, to hold a lens up to our activity and let us look at what we do, how we can do it better, engage more people and reach others, truly believing that our work can change people's lives. Our recent growth is to make performance, and we now make and co-produce interactive early years performances in both Norwich and King's Lynn. Most successfully, my first productions. See what we did, right? We use our dance studios and theatre, the bricks and mortar, to reach thousands of participants each and every year, and tens of thousands of audience members. Starting in early years means that we can break down the barriers right at the start. We can reach families, and we can truly have life-changing experiences. But we don't just make professional performances. We give our participants the opportunity to work with professional artists to make pieces of performance. The pieces like we'll see in the finale of the Love Light Festival 2022. These vocational events are a huge part of how we retain and engage participants in our programs, which leads to the life-changing statistics, data, and stories that we've heard. They will make memories in this activity that they will never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. We shall have to have a little bit of a technological review afterwards to see the one time that the light isn't shining on the screen doesn't actually work. So we're doing well, I'd like to welcome up Debbie Thompson, the director of Sheringham Little Theatre. Hopefully our technology will work better this time.
I'm hoping so. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. I'll be a bit lost if it doesn't, to be honest. I've got a memory stick. Don't really know how to use it, but if anyone does. Anyway, hello, yes, I'm Debbie Thompson. I'm the director at Sheringham Little Theatre. And I'm here to tell you about a project called Rewriting Rural Racism. During the first lockdown in 2020, I was approached by 4 young creatives who actually had grown up at the Little Theatre. They'd been in tons of shows since the age of 8, and they came back because of the lockdown, most of them from drama school or recently graduated from university. And in response to Black Lives Matter, they came to me and said, Debbie, you're the community venue, you've always helped us, help us try to combat some of the racism that we've experienced in North Norfolk. And I said, well, you'll have to help me because you're the clever ones. And they came up with the project, Rewriting Rural Racism, and it was incredible. It had 3 elements to it. One was a one-man show based on the experience of a mixed heritage boy growing up in North Norfolk. It was called Outskirts. And what I loved about it is he wasn't banging drums at us at all and making us feel bad. He was telling us in a really accessible and quite comical way the experiences that he had had. It was a really moving and accessible piece. Then they managed to deliver all over Zoom, because the lockdown was going on, some anti-racism workshops throughout schools in North Norfolk. And then the final piece of the project was the creation of a film that looked at the history of migration to Norfolk and also focused on some current stories from migrants. And that is a lovely piece of film that I'm going to use, hopefully, today, just some clips to show you. And the first clip that I would like to show is a 5-minute animation, and it's actually a whistle-stop tour of the history of migration into Norfolk. So let's really fingers crossed that it works. Luckily, it's got audio, so if we can't see it, at least we'll be able to hear it. Over to you. You're clever.
Oh, you say that now.
It's looking hopeful. Yay.
Every group of immigrants brings its own characteristics into the cultural mix that makes up Norwich. Frank Mears. Everybody's an incomer to East Anglia. All our ancestors were immigrants, and there's so many incredible stories to tell. But this is a very quick, whistle-stop tour through Norfolk Migration. 250,000 years ago, the UK was physically joined to Europe and inhabited by Neanderthals. Norfolk has evidenced some of the earliest human movement in the whole continent, with prehistoric footprints discovered at Haysborough. And in AD 30, Norfolk was home to the Iceni tribe. The Thetford area was part of Queen Boudica's land. She eventually was defeated by the Romans from Italy, whose empire dominated most of Europe and England for over 400 years. They created a major settlement at Caister St Edmunds and defensive forts at Borough Castle and Caister-on-Sea. East Anglia actually got its name from the Anglo-Saxons, who invaded from Saxony, which is modern-day Germany, and drove out the Romans. Centuries later, the Vikings invaded from Scandinavia, named many Norfolk places, and set up bases in Thetford and what was to become the city of Norwich. Normans arrived from France in the 11th century and created Norwich Cathedral, the castle, and the marketplace. The Jewish community arrived with them, settling in Thetford, and funding many of the most impressive buildings in Norwich. While in the Middle Ages, Norwich actually became the second largest settlement in all of Britain, behind London. Its wealth mainly came from skilled weavers and wool work, imported with the Flemish people from the Netherlands. Many migrants who had skills to teach were headhunted to come to Norfolk, with many more settling in Great Yarmouth, including merchants, painters, and goldsmiths from a variety of places and ethnicities. In the 16th century, the strangers referred to Dutch and French-speaking refugees who fled religious persecution and were actually invited to Norwich. It was estimated that at one point, as many as a third of the people in Norwich were Dutch and French-speaking immigrants. The Dutch created Great Yarmouth Harbour and brought over canaries as pets. Norwich soon became known for its canary breeding, and so the canary has become the symbol of the city. The first book printed in the area was by a Belgian migrant too, but in 1579, the plague disproportionately killed the area's immigrants. From those French refugee families came 2 Norwich mayors and Harriet Martineau, who was born in 1802 in a house on Magdalen Street and campaigned against slavery and for women's rights. Though there was evidence of black people in England since at least the Roman era, one of the earliest prominent black people in Norfolk is the anti-slavery campaigner James Albert Okafor Groniasaw, whose grandfather was the King of Benin, now part of Nigeria. James was kidnapped and sold into slavery, earned his freedom, and travelled to Norwich to work as a weaver, becoming the first African published in all of Britain. The 16th to the 19th century transatlantic slave trade. We like to see slavery as an American problem, but we in Britain were one of the biggest profiteers of the transporting and selling of slaves, with ships from King's Lynn buying slaves in West Africa and transporting them to America. It's estimated that as many as 2 million enslaved people died on this journey. Norfolk both profited off slavery and supported its abolition in the 19th century, when freed slaves arrived in Great Yarmouth and a large petition was signed to support abolition. Captain Frederick Paul Irby from Morningthorpe was stationed off the African coast and rescued many people from the then illegal slave trade, including 3 child slaves who were later baptised at St. Peter Mancroft Church in Norwich in 1813. However, slavery was still legal in other parts of the British Empire for another 20 years. Throughout the rest of the 19th century, the Beatles' favourite Norwich son, Pablo Funk, was born in a Norwich workhouse but became the first black circus proprietor in Britain. The Irish fled the horrible potato famine, and Scottish herring girls spent long days gutting and salting fish to be shipped around the world, both groups landing in Great Yarmouth. Around the same time, the Maharaj Duleep Singh, who was an Indian royal, was exiled by the British and lived in Elvedon Hall near Thetford, and his daughter later on became a suffragette who fought for women's rights and supported the large community of Indian troops fighting for Britain. In the early 1900s, Dr. Alan Minns became Thetford's and England's first ever black mayor. Migrants brought dances, food, skills, art and music to the area, and a Spanish merchant ship was sunk by the Spanish nationalists in an act of civil war just off the coast of Cromer, with many rescued by Cromer's lifeboatmen settling there along with other refugees from the war. World War II. Many fled from persecution in Nazi Germany. Albert Einstein even stayed in Rowton Heath before going to America. And the Kindertransport, established by Sir Nicholas Winton, saved 241 Jewish children by transporting them away from Germany, with many being taken into villages and towns around East Anglia. Commonwealth men and women fought on the front line and for the home front in Norfolk, and the American Air Force had some segregated bases here. Black soldiers had their own units and off-duty haunts around Norwich, Diss and Harleston. Just after the war, in 1948, the Windrush generation started. Many ships full of people came from the West Indies to England. These people were invited here to help rebuild post-war Britain, and we needed all the help we could get. Around the same time, many Greek Cypriots made Great Yarmouth their new home. In 1981, Norwich City Football Club legend Justin Fashanu, who grew up near Attleborough to a Nigerian family, became Britain's first £1 million black player, although he received lots of racist and homophobic abuse at the time. In the 90s, Norfolk took in refugees from conflicts in Turkey, with some settling in Munsley, Kosovo, and the Rwandan genocide. While in the 2000s, many migrated to Great Yarmouth from Portugal, Lithuania, and Poland, as well as many other places, to work. This freedom of movement was granted under the European Union, which was linked to a previously unrivaled period of peace and prosperity across Europe. And in 2003, Norfolk celebrated Black History Month for the very first time. In 2016, the Brexit vote happened and all of Norfolk, except from Norwich, voted leave. In 2020, the Black Lives Matter protests in Norwich and King's Lynn were attended by hundreds in person and online to protest against police brutality and racial inequality here and in the US. And finally, in 2021, Britain left the European Union, but people from all over the world still call Norfolk their home.
So as you can see, it was a whistle-stop tour. It was led by Matthew Harrison as the lead artist. We had help with the garage, thank you very much, Adam, and some wonderful young people from the Prince's Trust as well. So it was just a wonderful, accessible animation for everyone to be able to really enjoy and just get a snapshot of what happened. So then we looked at how do we develop this project. It was so successful and we really needed to do something. And we've now come up with a wonderful piece called Here is Home. I say we, it's not me at all, it's these clever young people. And you will be able to see it because it was created because of the Love Light Festival. And it fixes in with the theme of love and belonging. And we're absolutely honoured to be working in conjunction with the fantastic light artist that you mentioned, Stefan. Now I think Nicole, Dyke, but I might be getting that wrong. You said it in a much better way than I did. So they will be doing Here is Home. It is a 20-minute outdoor physical theatre piece looking at some specific stories of migration and how actually Norfolk is very welcoming and making people feel really at home here. So I please urge you all to come and see it, because the young people who've created it will be really delighted if you can support it. It was going to be outdoors. You might see there's a stage outside St Andrews all ready for it, but unfortunately because of the weather it's going to be coming inside. So it's a free event and it's at 7 o'clock every night of the festival, and it's called Here is Home, and they would really love you to come and see it. And the piece includes some quotes from the Norwich-based artist Piers the poet, and it's amazing the poetry that he writes. And actually during the film We Are One, he wrote 3 pieces of fantastic poetry, and I would like to end my little bit looking at one of, and being able to hear, hopefully looking at it as well, one of his poems that was part of the We Are One film. So thank you very much, and please do come and see Here is Home during the festival.
Norfolk is a pretty place. I love the art, I love the pace. With books and friends and sea and space, its smiling eyes so warm. Holds stories of folks found displaced and mostly gracefully embraced. In old echoes of mustard and lace, its love is multiform. I know the city's Wi-Fi codes. I sweat and laugh and dance at shows, even forget my face's tone looks any different to the norm. And most are just intrigued if shown, a different colour than they've known, sometimes a little leery or frightened if alone, but mostly free from scorn. Then there is those petty few, who want to fight and want to feud, with whom they deem a nasty hue. Scapegoating, faces red. They bark and monkey noise and boo, and enforcing fears their fears then grew, and this normal man in front of you becomes a demon they'd wish dead. These empty acolytes are fools. Cynics separate us, these ghouls force fights for crumbs and dirt and gruel when we could all be fed. But mostly Norfolk is a pretty place. Warm smiles and welcoming embrace of cultures, creeds, and oh so safe. The future's bright ahead. If we keep racists a dying breed, don't let them plead or seed or feed. They are the ones who truly bleed the freedom from us all. Norfolk is a pretty place.
Thank you very much, Debbie, and thank you to Piers, who did a beautiful poem also about Norwich with the bid, which is a lovely reflection. So it's great to have those synergies again, and I would encourage everyone to come along and see all the different art pieces. We've now got a good old-fashioned refreshment break. We've got 15 minutes. Worryingly, we're almost on time, if not slightly early, so that's a good thing. So if I could ask everyone to come back at 4:35, please enjoy a coffee and a pastry or something in the end, and we'll see you all back shortly. Thank you very much. It was there. Hopefully everyone's back and the microphone's on. We've just done some good old-fashioned DIY moving the screen. Hopefully it will remain out of the light so that we can see it. And thank you all for coming back, those that have stayed with us. And thank you all. We'll start. Up first is Kirstie Tostevin from our amazingly wonderful sponsors, Artlist, who are very kindly put on today's event and are proud sponsors of this. So if I could ask Kirstie to come up, and then we can move on. I'll hand over the clicker of excitement. There you go.
Where do I point it?
Anywhere you like. It says Bluetooth.
Oh, fancy. Okay, cool. Hello. Oh, God. I'm so COVID aware. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting us to be at this event. It's really cool. I particularly loved the Deaf Plur talk before, the peace, love, unity, respect. That was really awesome. Some really cool speakers here, and thank you very much. I'm really excited to be talking about the thing that I'm most passionate about, positively impacting creative people's experiences, not only by building great tools, but also fostering amazing support networks and opportunities in the creative industry. Right, so let's see if this works. Aha! We've been around for 20 years now. We've actually been in Norwich this whole time. And globally, we've built our reputation as a small team of developers who are responsible for the video editing and visual effects software Hit Film, image editing software Emerge, I can even do it without looking at it, look, and Camtrack AR, which was featured on an Apple keynote recently. But our determination to effect positive change over the years has shifted the whole video industry and the experience of millions of creative people. Now, you can call us Artlist. In 2021, we were acquired by these guys, who are today's market leader in high-quality digital assets, including footage, music, and SFX. And together, we are going to be building the leading toolset for new generation of digital creators and breaking down barriers to creativity wherever we can. So, trying to make this stuff a bit interesting. I know I've got 15 minutes. The sun may be my timer, though, so let me know if that starts to move across the screen. But first, I'm going to play a little video. It's very short about Artlist. No, I'm not, because it's not going to play. How do I do this? I just... Sorry.
It's okay. Sometimes it works like that. Might go to YouTube. It should work. Oh.
We're offline. Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I really can't do any kind of interpretive dance or tell you what was in that video. I'm afraid without it, we're a bit screwed. But we'll move on to the next bit. So, a quick history lesson then. Oh, no. I'm afraid it's not moving along again.
Yeah. Oh, no. What's going on here? It should
Thank
work.
you.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry about it. So, oh no, the sun is moving. Okay, so a quick history lesson then. Before we were the developers of creative tools, we used them ourselves. Let me take you back. Picture the scene. You know this place, UEA. We're going back to 2000. So our VP of software at Artlist, who was the founder of FX Home, Josh Davies, is an undergrad student. There he is. Helping out his stepbrother, who didn't give permission for his picture to be in this, so I've just made him yellow, helping out his stepbrother with his university film project. So in 1999, the year before, the bad Star Wars films, which were the prequels, if you disagree, I will see you outside, and The Matrix were released. So everyone around this time was obsessed with adding gunshots, lightsabers, slow motion to their movies. Josh's stepbrother is no different. But adding lightsabers to a scene in 2000 is no easy feat. Without spending thousands, and I mean thousands of pounds, on the only visual effects software available on the market at the time for big budget studios, he has to settle on doing it manually. So I don't know if any of you used the primitive version of Photoshop, but he had to draw a lightsaber, color it in, move to the next frame, draw the lightsaber, color it in. He thought it was going to take about 3 weeks for him to do, and Josh was getting impatient because he played games with his stepbrother and he wanted his gaming buddy back. So instead of waiting, like nobody else in the world, he just develops a piece of software to mean that the lightsaber only needs to be drawn every 5 frames, and then the computer automatically fills in the difference. It's super simple, it's built for purpose, and his stepbrother finishes the movie in 3 days without spending any money or needing to learn a huge new complicated tool. So this is going to be the ugliest slide you've ever seen, so I do apologize. 2000, technology in the 2000s. It was really difficult to make videos at all. This is what we were dealing with. Google had been released, but only just. You'll see Google Beta, almost beaten by the sun. YouTube and Facebook were actually still 5 years away at this point. So if you were a filmmaker, you needed specialized equipment to move your videos onto your computer. You still used videotapes, and while sharing your work wasn't impossible, it was made much more difficult by slow internet speeds. The majority of websites at the time were probably news, blogs, forums, and only 32% of the US population owned a phone, and it didn't have a camera. So that was the BlackBerry literally came out in 2000. Without the thousands of pounds of hardware and thousands of pounds of software, you couldn't even edit videos, let alone add visual effects. And so being a video creative was restricted to those who did it for a living or who had loads of money to spend. Not only that, software was super new, and there was a really steep learning curve to it. And then, if you managed to get past all that, you actually managed to afford all the equipment, where would you learn how to use it? You might be the only person in your family, your friend group, maybe even your entire town who was interested in creating videos. There was no information on the internet to help you learn. It was even more difficult to find dedicated places online to geek out about this stuff. So when we launched in 2001, we made sure that we focused on 2 things. The software we developed would be simple, easy to use, and purpose-built for the users. And the second thing is we would put all of our effort into providing the best support and community to those people so that they never felt isolated from other people who are passionate about what they did, and they never gave up on their dreams because they couldn't learn what they needed to. We started up one of the very first forums for filmmakers. Aha, there we go. These are just some of the people from the early years that we still talk to nowadays. Though our company remained tiny compared to our competitors, our community stood head and shoulders above as an authentically caring place to find friends and collaborators. So fast forward to now, we've been to 2000, up to 2022. Nowadays, social media and the expansion of the internet means that creative people have everything they need at their fingertips. As video and creation in particular, as I'm sure you know, has gotten more popular, the spaces dedicated to learning have gotten much larger. So in the 15 years since YouTube has launched, surveyed school kids have stopped answering the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, with the answer doctor or astronaut. And they're starting to say YouTuber or vlogger. In 2015, we went on a work trip to LA to a convention called VidCon, which is a YouTube convention for young people who are interested in video creation. There were 10-year-olds there with their parents who had dragged them to a seminar on how to make your YouTube brand, how to make money on YouTube, how to be your own personal influencer. Instead of going to Disneyland, which was literally right across the road, the parents were completely shell-shocked and confused as to why they were there in a seminar with their 10-year-old rather than at Disneyland. But it was quite hilarious to watch. So video is serious stuff, and kids can see big futures for themselves online as influencers and digital creators. And they can make a lot of money doing it. This is great for a number of reasons, because they don't have to get a degree, in order to be a doctor. They don't have to go through 20 years of learning to be an astronaut. But most importantly, because this puts the power in their hands. All the stories that everyone has to tell has the power to be heard because people like us have helped lead the way towards more access and empowerment for creators. We have the best example of this in the form of our own Javert Valbar, who is our visual effects artist. I found him on the internet when he was 15 years old. He had a YouTube channel where he was putting up all of his cool visual effects shots. And we hired him as an intern, pulled him over from America, and he's been working with us ever since. And he's actually spearheading our educational content at the moment and being an inspiration for now the next generation of 15-year-olds coming through. So this glow up is exactly what we want to see in terms of skill level for our users at the moment. What have I got next? Aha. So for many years, we were a really small company. You know, we've been here for 20 years, like I said. You may not have heard of us already. It's because we were very small. We had a small budget, we had few resources, but still, through hard work and learning everything there was to know about how to organically impact people, my team have been able to grow our community from just a few hundred people to almost 7 million users worldwide. We did this by putting them first and by listening to what they had to say. They told us they needed more videos because they didn't know how to learn the software. So we launched a YouTube channel on a shoestring. The sun is really, oh no. And focused on good quality info and entertaining faces. We've got hundreds of free tutorials on there now and over 250,000 regular subscribers. The users told us that lots of the industry's video software was inaccessible to them because it was too expensive. So we made quite a controversial decision back in 2014 to make our $149 software HitFilm Express completely free for anyone to use. No watermarks, no limits, just really powerful software. Since then, obviously, the rest of the industry's followed suit, but we have changed that industry forever. The users also told us that they wanted to make a positive impact on the world. So we introduced the option to pay what you want for that free software and promise to pay a percentage to good causes for every purchase. From 2020 to 2021, we donated over $300,000 to COVID and environmental-related charities on their behalf because of their generosity. And when COVID hit, and they told us that they were lonely, or bored, or their mental health was really suffering, we doubled down even more on them and the support that we offered. We launched competitions to encourage their creativity during the lockdown. We released videos about our own personal experiences working from home. We did live streams where we chatted to them in real time, and with users around the globe, there's never a time zone in which somebody's not up and happy to talk to you. So I was going to show you the winner of the lockdown competition, but I'm not sure whether the video is going to work. It's very funny. No. Okay, right, let's see if I can get it. No, I'm afraid we're offline, guys. So what happens in this video is essentially one of our long-term users was trapped at home. He was in a bubble with his girlfriend and they couldn't leave the house. So what he did was he did a little video where he added visual effects to a bunch of everyday situations. She tried to turn on the TV, it exploded. She tried to open the door, a time portal came up out of nowhere and sucked her through the ground. He messed with her face. I mean, it's a really good video. I'm really sad I can't show it to you, but yeah, there were some amazing pieces of creativity that came out of those competitions, which were in fact helped by the fact that people had limitations on what they could do. So at the end of the day, the reason that people want to be creative is because they have something to say. They're telling a story, they're making connections with other people along the way too. If you make creative tools unattainable to anyone without a big wallet, or you gatekeep the information, which means they can't actually learn the software, we're missing out on all of the incredible voices who could have shared something really special with them if it wasn't more accessible. So we've changed the video industry with our positive presence in a global way. And now with Artlist and their rocket fuel, we want to take everything that we've learnt and bring it to Norwich. We've broken down barriers for people wanting to get into video creation, and now we're turning our attention to the local tech community, which is why we're here, to say hi. In the next few weeks, we're going to be unveiling in a few weeks an exciting new tech space. Somewhere in the center of the city, where we at Artlist can provide top-notch equipment, teaching, and education to raise up the local developer and creative community. Our Artlist developers are honestly some of the best in the whole world, and they have a lot to share about their experiences of working in the tech industry. We're going to make Artlist the home of technology and creativity in Norwich, and it is our mission to raise up and celebrate the incredible talent we have here locally while doing what we do best globally, which is educating and supporting people. It's an open space that's going to be accessible to organizations, students, underrepresented groups, and basically anyone who wants to use it, by offering somewhere free with loads of space, good tech and great speakers. We hope to be able to interconnect all of the already existing amazing tech groups in Norwich and give opportunity to those that are not yet realized. Trust me, we've got lots of plans. We're all this energetic at Artlist, so you're going to see us everywhere talking constantly. And I can't wait to see who starts using that space and becoming part of our wider family. Yeah, that's it.
Spot it from my phone.
Okay, sure.
Sorry about that.
We're just going to see if by the magic of a mobile phone and a hotspot we can make it work. So we'll see if we can get the link to work. It's basically their embedded YouTube clips, and the Wi-Fi in here is dropping out and can't carry on. That's why it's not picking up. But we're going to see if we can adapt, overcome. We'll see if we do it. We're filling in just on the chance, and we'll see if we can do it.
How's this one? How do I? Is it going to work?
It's not going to work, is it?
It might not. Might be too slow, I'm afraid.
Technology may defeat us.
I feel like I failed you as an IT company. Maybe we need to take a leaf out of your book.
In which case, we apologise again for Wi-Fi failing us, and sorry to Artlist that we couldn't make the magic happen. We'll send through a link to that to everyone, and therefore you can look at it at your own leisure and wonder. Next up is Desmond Brett, and he's the senior lecturer at the NUA, and he's got some of, I believe, the students and the emerging artists coming to have a chat. So if I could invite Desmond up, and look forward to his story. Desmond.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirstie. It's a really great talk, and I just want to say, put on record that the Phantom Menace is a work of genius, and I'll have nothing said against it. It's misunderstood, and any one of the Rat's Tail is good with me. Thank you. It's great to have an opportunity to talk with you. I'm going to go analog. I'm not showing any slides or images because there's plenty to see this evening from 5 o'clock. Fiona, who's been heavily involved in Love Light Festival, Love Light Norwich, is a current MA student at NUA. And we had a discussion over a year ago now about the potential for students from Norwich University of the Arts being involved in Love Light Norwich. And I thought it'd be a wonderful opportunity for students to have an opportunity to get out there, to get their work seen, visible in the public realm. An art school can be a bubble, and it's so important, and I feel so strongly about this, that students should get as many chances to experience the world and to test their work out in all sorts of different contexts. So when this opportunity arose, I couldn't turn it down. The process was fairly straightforward. We just decided to establish a competition, an open call out, primarily the MA students. And through that, we invited students to submit a proposal. What we were interested in were fantastic ideas, exciting ideas. We weren't concerned about logistics, the laws of physics, engineering problems. We just wanted really, really strong ideas that really shone out. And from a field of over nearly 25, 26 applicants. They were narrowed down to a short list of 7. And they're the 7 people you'll be seeing the work this evening in and around Norwich. So I'm going to read you out, I'm going to just remind you who they are. Philippa Champagne, Alex Page, Ulrika Behrens, Aaron Griffin, Anastasia Smith, David Greaves, and Holly Sanderford. And I want you to root them out on your travels around your tour of the works, because we feel as a University of the Arts, and hopefully on behalf of Love Light Norwich, that their contribution to the festival is original and interesting and challenging and exciting, and hopefully a measure of what we're about as an art school. Because we are nothing without the work that's being made by the students, and it's been fantastic for me to see this work unfolding. I've just simply been the pain in the neck, hassling students to hurry up and get stuff done on time, but otherwise they've been a dream. When we got this work going, one of the key issues that was critical to this project for them to realize their work was to have some real life experience. So one of the stopping points we had was to go to Great Yarmouth and visit Out There Arts, who are the most extraordinary organization. And for those who came along to the event, we were able to meet professional artists working in light and performance and circus performance as well. And it was a chance for students to get a handle on what it is to work in the public realm. What's the jeopardy involved in working out there? What are the hazards? What are the pitfalls? And it was wonderfully presented by a number of the practitioners there, who offered, on the one hand, straight down the line health and safety knowledge and doing things by the book, but also there's this very wonderful, let's say, left field, maybe not doing things by the book approach. And I think that filtered in, that was noted by the students, because of course we're so sort of aware of how to do things perhaps properly, that it's useful to know how to do things improperly. So I hope there's a bit of improperliness around when you travel and see the work today. I'd like to think, and I'll hopefully Aaron will talk about this soon, but for me the real benefit was that the students were able to learn to be adaptive, to learn that actually an idea, a kind of platonic idea in their head, an initial idea has to be adapted and changed, and things will form and interfere and inform the way the work is developed. So that was an invaluable kind of opportunity to learn how to change a work from an initial proposal to maybe just to compromise in some ways, and the challenges and the issues that might be presented to a piece of work being presented in the public realm becomes actually a possibility. It can be liberating. So I like to think that, and I stand corrected, Aaron, if that's the case. It was an experience to work within a professional context as well, to work with other professionals. Love Light Norwich I've been totally blown away by how professional and how well it's been managed, and that's such a positive experience for the students involved. And I'd really like to also thank Sarah Ballard as well. I know she's not here today, but she's been operating as the kind of liaison between the students and the festival organisers, and that's been, I'd like to think, a really great relationship that's been made there. They've learned to be adaptable. They've learned to project manage, to get the work done on time. There were times kind of midway through when a number of students were saying to me, well, I don't think this is going to happen, this is going to work. But they have to trust that it will, and be determined, and to learn how to manage their time, and they've come good. So I think that the benefits have been huge for them. And I'd like to think that this will be an ongoing project that over the next Love Light Festival and onwards. And I'd like to think we've sort of developed a good relationship there, that we can continue the Emerging Artists Award, because I think it's been a massive opportunity for us, and hopefully a massive experience for the students involved. So Aaron, I think I'm going to invite you to come up, and then after that, can I just introduce Holly's film as well? Is that okay? So now, so I'd like to introduce you to Aaron Griffin, who's one of the one of my MA students who's got a piece of work, and he'll talk a little bit about the process and the work itself. Have you just come straight from wiring it up, or?
Just finishing up. It's fine. It's all good. What's the worst that can happen? So my name's Aaron Griffin. I'm an MA Fine Arts student, as Des says. My practice is primarily based in print, a broad interpretation of print. I generally tend to look at articulating the dislocation in the gallery space through a subversion of curatorial modes and methods of display. So in a lot of ways, this was a really interesting project for me right off the bat. But as Des says, it's all about adaptability, so that you learn a lot very quickly. My piece for this, I apologize, I haven't got any stills to show you, but my piece for this is essentially a fabricated light box based on a two-story municipal walk-up, a building that is in the city. Across its surface, it has a floral pattern etched into the surface. It's underlit by LEDs, so that pattern will sort of bloom off the surface. It's been one of those processes where we're working really closely with technicians. A lot of this stuff is something that I didn't have any clue where to even begin. It was all speculative at the beginning. I leaned incredibly heavily on the experience around me, specifically James, one of the 3D workshop technicians, who was just incredible in keeping me on track and helping me to realize my ideas. As Des said, of course there are times where you have to be adaptable and you have to make compromises. In the end, with a project like this, it is very viewer focused. In the end, it is about delivering something that will be in keeping with the festival's themes, that will be enjoyable for a broad audience. So you have to keep that in mind throughout. It has been challenging. It has been difficult. But it's also been incredibly exciting, incredibly rejuvenating in a lot of ways. Part of the MA is about breaking down your practice and reevaluating what you're doing. This has certainly done that. It certainly helps you to view what you're doing in a completely different way. Everyone at Love Light has been incredible. These programs are so important to emerging artists and mid-career artists. The opportunity to work within a professional context, to develop those kind of professional skills, to make contact with individuals within the industry that you are choosing to work in. It's not always an industry that just gives itself up to you. And with groups like this, bridging those gaps, it's incredible and it's invaluable. So I really want to thank them for everything they've done for us. I really want to thank Des for putting this to us, for actually trusting us with this opportunity. It's been incredible. I don't think that's quite 5 minutes, but yeah. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, kind of everyone was a winner, really, in a sense that students come out with an original piece of work, but and also an important important chance to exhibit work and to add to the creative culture in Norwich. So there's a short film from Holly Sanderford, who can't be here to talk, but she's pre-prepared a short film for you to watch, and it's a beautiful piece of work. So thanks, everyone.
So, good afternoon. My name is Holly Sanderford, and I'm an artist and an artist educator, and a current MA student at the university, Norwich University of the Arts. Yeah, so this has been an absolutely fantastic opportunity for me and my work. I've been experimenting with analog photography, which is photography without the use of a camera. So I will paint directly onto photographic paper, and for this project I have been painting on photographic paper with the soil, and a lot of my research has been about the soil, so I'm working with the Journalist Centre with scientists there to really sort of deeply learn about the soil and kind of the microbes in it and the microbiome of the roots of plants and all sorts, which is fascinating. And also I've been studying and doing my own kind of separate course, learning about the kind of the science behind the soil. I think this has been such a good opportunity because it's taken my work from kind of the small scale and very kind of visual and beautiful to something much bigger, and it's really pushed me to do that. I've never really used light in my work before. I did have an installation that inspired this, which was in the Bridewell Museum in the window, so just coincidentally there was a bit of lighting behind it, which I really liked, that lit up some planets that I've made from where I'd grown bacteria and made them look like moons. And yeah, I just really liked that. And so to have the chance to do this and to create something really big has been really exciting. And it's been exciting for my own practice, but also it's been really exciting because it's a more accessible way to work. And I think that's very important to me. For the last 25 years, I've been working in both social care and the arts, and I'm a director of a non-for-profit called Art at Work, and we use the arts to support mental health and work with families, children, and so obviously that kind of accessibility thing of the Love Light Festival is so good at doing, you know, that everyone feels welcome, is really, really important. I think I especially like that the Shoebox Community Hub are opening up their base for people, which is absolutely fantastic. And actually, some of the people that I run sessions for are going to be coming and going to the Shoebox Hub, because it's an overwhelming thing coming into the city. So yeah, it's a great festival. So it kind of brings my two worlds together in that way. And it's just made me realise just how important it is to me that the artwork is accessible, and so taking it from a pretty picture on the wall to something that can be experienced by everyone. And because it's so large scale, it's not just something art that you think about, but it's art that makes people feel something, and you know, they're going to respond in a kind of bodily way because it's so big, and yeah, and it's just so accessible. And there's no sort of ways to talk about it. So if we take our groups into galleries, it can be quite intimidating, you know, the whole kind of structure of the gallery. So taking art out into the streets is fabulous. So yeah, so thank you for kind of putting it on and sort of supporting me to kind of make that transition and realise how important it was to do that as well. Yeah, I think the process of having that support as well, and being able to talk things through, especially working on such a big scale, just practically, you know, that it would probably be a bit intimidating to do on your own. So to have someone sort of holding your hand, and to have, you know, Fiona and Sarah to refer to when I'm struggling, or, you know, I've got a question, just a technical question, has kind of made me think bigger. So that's been really, really helpful. And yeah, just makes you kind of rethink what you can do, and the possibilities is making things bigger. And the next question really is, you know, where do I take that now, and how can I make it even more immersive, like adding sound and making it, you know, something that people experience even more, in a more sort of bodily sense, and making it even bigger. So thank you for this opportunity, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your symposium.
Thank you very much. Normally they say never work with children or animals. I think I might add sunlight and Wi-Fi to that list of things that you really need to overcome in certain environments. Thank you everyone for bearing with us. We've obviously now got our main speaker, and I'm very pleased to welcome Karl Minns, the comedy writer and performer, and hopefully everyone is aware. He's told me that I have to verbosely over-exaggerate his skill sets because his ego can't bear it. But no, thank you very much to Karl for coming to speak today, and I'll let him go forward.
hopefully, yes, no. Hopefully I won't ruin that. I'm your guest speaker for this afternoon. Yeah, can you all hear me, by the way? Is the mic on? It's lovely to be here. Thank you. Can hear me? Thumbs up there. It's lovely to be here. It's the first time I've ever been at St Andrew's Hall. I've been drunk here a couple of times at the beer festival. It's my first time on stage. A few St Andrew's Hall facts before I start. The hall was built way back in 1470 when Henry VI was on the throne and Delia Smith was just a child. St Andrew, of course, one of the first disciples to join Jesus, and is, of course, the patron saint of men who become sweat. So, start with a gag. So, my name's Karl. If you don't know me, I've been a comedy writer for television, stage, and radio for about 25 years now. I'm also one-third of local comedy double act, the Nimmo Twins, alongside Owen Evans. If you haven't seen the Nimmo Twins, fine. If you haven't seen the Nimmo Twins, basically we dress in suits and get paid to ridicule the people of Norfolk, like County Hall, but with more integrity. Now, I've been asked this afternoon to talk about what culture means to me and how it's benefited my life and my mental health. That's a big ask. It's pretty much impossible to overstate what culture has not only benefited my life, but probably saved it as well, to be honest. So what I'm going to do, basically, is chat for about 20-odd minutes about my life and illustrate it with a few slides on the PowerPoint over here. Then afterwards, we might have a little Q&A if there's time. Don't worry, Norfolk, I'm aware that does mean you have to talk to a stranger, but don't get affared, don't get mardy, you ain't got to if you don't want to. So, I think the simplest thing for me to do is start at the beginning of my life. First up, I need to tell you, I'm not actually from Norfolk. I was born in Bungay. That's right, Norfolk, I am from Suffolk. Sorry about that. Yes, my mother and sister is a lovely woman. Let's get all those jokes out of the way straight away. Now, most of you, I imagine, know Bungay. No, Bungay, of course you do. It's a lovely place, a few thousand people. Probably best known for being the home of the Chicken Roundabout. So named because it's a roundabout with chickens on it, and yet people still go to Disneyland. It's also the place, it's absolutely true, where Julian Assange first hides out before taking refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy. Absolutely true. And it's the ideal place, after all, in Bungay, who's going to notice another creepy weirdo who never leaves the house. Now, I was born in 1970, and in East Anglia in the 1970s, there wasn't much culture without the word agri in front of it. Now, we did have a mobile library in Bungay. It had to be mobile because if it stayed in one place for too long, the locals would set fire to it. But like many of you here, I don't really come from a cultural background. The only books in our house were my dad's 10-volume History of the Second World War, collected in weekly parts for longer than the Second World War itself. The only other book was Mrs. Beaton's book of home management. That was it. You could either read about the Third Reich or learn how to make spotted dick. And that was it, or both, if that was your bag. Now, also, my family never once went to the theatre. I think part of the reason was the Norwich Theatre Royal was 16 miles away. 16 miles. In Bungay, a trip that far would have meant getting jabs, insurance, visas, and then there's the jet lag, so we just basically never got round to it. However, I did go to a Catholic school in Bungay, where I had to go to church every Thursday. So even though I never went to a theatre, I was used to camp men in colourful costumes who liked being around young boys. But I didn't see an actual play until I was 18 years old. But despite us not having books at home, I loved reading. I loved reading and writing and playing with words. And that sort of made me stand out in my family. I got funny looks off uncles who say things like, not only can he read, he enjoy it. Now, I was, as my nan used to say, right brainy. Now, the problem was, of course, you didn't need to be very clever at all in East Anglia to be too clever by half. I'm 9 years old, and I'm sat in my front garden reading an Enid Blyton book, when my next-door neighbour leans on the fence, sees me reading, and goes, all right, Professor. That was what Bungay was like. Bungay was that kind of town. Now, for most kids from poor or working class backgrounds, I'm sure some of the people in here tonight or this afternoon can relate to that. This attitude wasn't uncommon. Culture, and by that I mean books, theatre, art, dance, playing instruments, was something that aroused suspicion rather than curiosity. It was something the posh kids did, and by posh in Bungay, of course, we meant people with matching shoes. Now, part of the reason I escaped into books and language was my dad was disabled. He had multiple sclerosis. Despite only being in his 30s, he looked around 70 and was wheelchair bound, and my mum was pretty much his full-time carer, which meant I spent a lot of time feeling very, very anxious and on my own a lot. So I escaped into words, I escaped into stories and culture. When the world around you is grey, creativity and imagination are a paradise, and so it was for me. And of course, I love popular culture, which I'm sure you all do. Cinema, pop music, and especially TV comedy. I loved it. I could watch The Two Ronnies on a Saturday night and recite it verbatim in the playground on a Monday morning. That's the kind of tedious arse I really was. But I love the fact that Ronnie Barker's monologues made language so elastic and fun. Words could have more than one meaning, or they could sound like another. They could be very rude, and that was just, it was amazing to me. It was mind-blowing. So I'd recite these bits, and I'd get a few laughs, and this made me feel less alone and less scared of the world. But the idea of being a writer or a performer was as ludicrous as saying I wanted to go and live on Mars. Being on stage, being up there, just didn't happen to people like me. Now, my father died of MS in 1981, in fact, 41 years ago today, when I was just 10 years old. And losing a parent was obviously a hugely devastating, scarring experience, but no one talked about trauma or mental health back then. There was no support, no counselling, certainly not for kids. The attitude to parental death in East Anglia back then was pretty much, well, you still got one left, haven't you? So nothing was really said. No one asked how I was. I was back at school about a week and a half later, and clearly I was dazed. I was deep in grief. So I did what I always did when I felt alone or scared. I reached for culture. I reached for my books. I lost myself in drawing and writing and the things I loved. And within a year, my life changed again, very, very dramatically. I had a new dad in my life, and he moved myself and my family to our new home in Great Yarmouth. Great Yarmouth, the Lowestoft of the East. Yeah, the kind of town where going on a fruit machine counts as one of your 5 a day. Now, I like that joke too. It's a cracking gag. That's a cracking gag. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't the new, loving, exciting life that I was hoping for. It wasn't the sunshine after the storm of losing my dad. Very quickly, my stepdad revealed himself to be violent and very abusive, and I lived in constant fear of his fists and his words, and he was very, very quick with both of them. Every day was spent in hypervigilance and anxiety, and alongside being violent, my stepdad was also a thief. Everything in our house was stolen, pretty much. Even our gas supply was stolen. He drilled into the pavement and run the gas supply into our house. He was insane. And everything was stolen. In the 9 years I lived with him, I never once saw a receipt. And because he stole, I had to as well. By the age of 12, I was pretty much living like the Artful Dodger. I was stealing almost every single day. Power tools, wood, coal, scrap metal of every single kind. We set back civil engineering projects in Great Yarmouth by decades. The reason the outer harbour, planned in 1985, not built to 2011, me. Now, alongside the violence, my stepdad would always mock my love of culture. He ridiculed the programs and the films I loved, the music I bought, the language I used. He got great sport out of it. As far as he was concerned, creativity and the arts and culture were effeminate, they were girly, and he'd constantly tell me I had to act like a real man, whatever the hell that was. But I needed to survive, so I did as he told me. I went out stealing, I went out scavenging, and the creative part of me sort of died, really, over a couple of years. But then one day in 1985, when I was around 14 and a half years old, I found a radio on a rubbish dump, this radio here. And there were batteries in this radio, and I smuggled it back home to avoid it being seen by my stepdad. If he saw it, he would have it. And I took it to my room, and the next morning I turned it on and found something called Radio 4. Now, I didn't know what Radio 4 was, but on Radio 4 that Saturday morning was a show called Loose Ends with Ned Sherrin, which is a chat show about the arts, culture, and the guests were comedians, they were writers, actors, directors. And it was like a light in the darkness of my life, and it reawakened my love of the arts again. And I started secretly listening to plays, comedies, documentaries, dramas on this battered old radio. And alongside that, I started to seek out books, music, TV series, documentaries, poems, whatever. Anything that resonated with who I believed I truly was under all the chaos of the life I was living. And for some of the older people here, you might remember this was the mid-80s. This was the time Channel 4 was in its absolute heyday. And if you remember those times, the early 80s, you remember that Channel 4 was bloody weird back then. It had alternative comedy, alternative music, strange and subversive programming, gay people. It was amazing. And it goes without saying, my stepdad bloody hated it. I, on the other hand, was drawn to it like flies to the puppet man. Every Thursday night, there was Film on 4, strange and wonderful films like The Draftsman's Contract, My Beautiful Laundrette, Brimstone and Treacle, the Mona Lisa, all these wonderful films, and I was totally hooked by them. I didn't always understand what I was watching, but I didn't care. In fact, the less I understood, the more I liked it. Pretentious? Moi? Yes, I was. I'd sit on the arm of the settee, one hand on the remote, praying my stepdad wouldn't come back from the pub early, because if he did, I'd have to turn the TV over and to watch something a bit more manly to escape his anger. Consuming culture in my house was as dangerous and illicit as shooting up heroin. You did it at your own risk. Now, prisoners in solitary confinement and hostages often say that the thing that kept them sane was remembering passages from books, lines from poems, lyrics of songs or scenes from their favorite films. And it makes complete sense, because art and culture did the same thing to me. It allowed me to escape the confines of the prison I was living in. I lived in fear and deprivation, unseen, unappreciated. My stepdad took my self-esteem and my confidence, but the one thing he couldn't take, the one thing he couldn't ever touch, was the inspiration, the passion, and joy the arts gave me. And culture was also a fortress that kept him out, the bastard, while I discovered a new and better world within its walls. Now, my plan was to go to college, then university, and then either become a great writer or a journalist. You couldn't be both. Come on, Norwich, we've all read the EDP. Now, but my stepdad had other ideas, and he gave me a choice, which was leave college now and get a job, or you'll be out on the streets. So with no real choice, I left Galston Sixth Form College after just 3 months of my A-level English course. And at 17, I really thought that the little cultural light I'd been nurturing so carefully and so delicately had been extinguished. I thought my creative life was over. But I was wrong, because one of the guys I worked with in the factory was a musician, and in me he recognized a fellow sensitive soul and invited me to come to Norwich with him, where his friends were putting on a play, and I'd never seen a play. I'd certainly never met actors, not knowingly anyway. So, of course, it was Norwich. I got my jabs, my visas, and set off. And the play was being staged at the Wensum Lodge over on King Street. This was 1988. And it was a production of In Camera by Jean-Paul Sartre. Yeah, about 3 people who were trapped in hell. I lived in Yarmouth with my stepdad. I could relate to that. And so that night, I sat down and watched my very first piece of theatre, and I bloody loved it. It blew me away. Now, today, the cast looks like an embarrassment of riches. Carl Theobald, a brilliant comic actor who's appeared in Green Wing Plebs and so much more. Beth Orton, who went on to become a very, very famous multi-billion-selling musical artist. And Shaun Harris, who is now a BAFTA award-winning actor and was in the last Mission Impossible film. But back then, they were kids like me, kids like some of the younger people in the audience tonight. But they were creating art and culture, and that blew my mind. I'd never met people that did that. And I went to the after-show party at a house in Rupert Street, and these people all seemed so confident, so sure. These people got on stage, for God's sake. I could never do that. And there were other actors, musicians, and creative people there, and their conversation was light, and it was funny, inclusive, warm, camp, colourful, and encouraging. Everything my home life wasn't. And walking to the train station the next day, it was genuinely like the entire sky was crackling. The sun was shining in my life for the first time in about 8 years. A new world had opened up. Honestly, I'd found my tribe. So I dreamed about this cultural life, and in 1990, the pull to be involved in the arts was so strong, I quit my factory job, signed on. My stepdad instantly kicked me out. Get out, you bloody scrounger. And a year or so later, I finally moved to Norwich. Hey! Now, I'll be honest, in 1992, Norwich wasn't quite the gentrified hipster Disneyland it is today. In 1992, I walked into a pub in Norwich and asked what kind of wines they had, and the barman went, both types. But it didn't matter because Norwich had theatres, it had music venues, and one of the biggest comedy venues in Europe. So, now, if you were on the dole back then in Norwich, you were given something called a passport to leisure. Some of the older scroungers here will remember that, which gave you reduced admission to theatres, cinemas, and music venues. It was brilliant. Only in the left-wing, dope-smoking hippie utopia of Norwich would they actually give you an incentive to keep signing on. So watching a movie at Cinema City cost £1. Brilliant. So I became addicted to European art house films. They were stylish, they were cool, spoke poetically about the human condition, and most importantly, to this 21-year-old, they had shed loads of female nudity. So I'd also buy the cheapest tickets for the very back row of the Theatre Royal and watched amazing plays, albeit through binoculars. I became a complete arts tart. Plays, movies, books, I didn't care, I just wanted a bit of it. Now, I may have been skint, I may have been completely skint, but culture lifted me out of the gutter. It made me feel like a millionaire. So I wanted to be involved in the arts, and I had a vague idea of either being a writer, performer, or a bass player in a really, really massively famous band. And I was actually playing bass years before I wrote something. Some of the Norwich bands I played in included People Connection, the Rainbirds, Venus Envy. Ever heard of them? No. That's why I decided to become a writer-performer. So I enrolled on the Theatre Royal Arts course at the old Studio Theatre. Some of you may remember it. Barely a 3-minute walk from my dank and dodgy bedsit on Chapelfield North. And it was £3 for a 2-hour class every Thursday. And we do theatre games, improv, readings, movement. And in these classes, I started to find a new version of me. Because in real life, I was catatonically shy. I couldn't look people in the eye. I mumbled. You know, I'm from Bungay. What did you expect? But in these rooms, I found my voice. I could be loud and confident. And I also started to find my body. I discovered it could move with discipline and focus rather than flailing around like a pissed giraffe. Now, our teacher was a lovely, encouraging man called Peter Sweet, who was as delightful and adorable as his surname suggested. And the term flew by, and before I knew it, it was time for our end-of-term show in front of an actual paying audience. And I was bloody terrified. And I remember being on stage an hour or so before the audience came in, as we were running through our lighting cues. And I'm standing on my mark when suddenly I find myself blinded by a spotlight shining in my face. And unable to see anything, I put my hands to my eyes and said, "Whoa, that is bright." And from the darkness, I heard Peter Sweet say, "Get used to it, Karl." And in those 5 little words were more encouragement, more belief, more inspiration than I'd ever been given in my life. Because God knows how, God knows why, but Peter could see that I might just be a performer. I had a little bit of talent. I belonged up there, and I've never forgotten it. And I found out as I was writing this speech that Peter passed away in November last year. God nourish and cherish his soul forever for speaking those 5 little words to me. He had no idea how much I needed to hear them. So we did the show. The show ended. I came on stage having got a few laughs in my comedy bits and some pin drop silence in my dramatic bits, and occasionally vice versa, if I'm honest. But I felt 10 feet tall. Bloody hell, something had changed. I was a performer. So in 1994, I joined Crude Apache Theatre Company, which some of you may well know. It's a wonderful community theatre that anyone of any ability can join, and you can try acting, writing, directing. It's wonderful. It's a great place to start. And I went to see one of their outdoor plays and thought, I think I could do that. So I went to their next company meeting, and they asked if anyone fancied writing a piece of pub theatre. And I'd never written anything before, but I stuck my hand in the air. And at that moment, my life really did change forever. Because the piece I was helping write was a little 15-minute mini panto called The Story of Barney Mutton, which was about Norwich City striker Chris Sutton. This was 1994. He was all in the news at the moment. And we performed this little piece to people in Norwich pubs, whether they wanted us to or not. And a lot of the times they really didn't. I do remember ducking pint glasses at the Stanley, which is now a rarely posh pub. It weren't back then. But I didn't care because I was in this little piece of theatre and I'd written some of the lines. And some of these lines sometimes made people laugh. And it's the first time it had happened and it felt incredible. Now, the following year, I helped write a full-length outdoor play called The Story of Billy Bluelight. There we go. And I played the lead. Look at me, what a fox I was back then. And the audiences, the show was really successful, and the audiences were huge. And amazingly, my stepfather came to see the show, but sat with his back to it. He thought what I was doing was a waste of time, that I was a waste of space, and he was willing to drive from Great Yarmouth to Norwich to tell me. But despite all that, I carried on writing. It was an amazing time. I felt like I'd really discovered a superpower. My self-esteem, my confidence, my life, and my faith in my future were completely transformed by theatre and performance. In 1996, I wrote the first Normal for Norfolk sketch show and formed the Nimmo Twins with Owen Evans a year later. And in 1997, myself and Owen took this show to the Edinburgh Festival. I'd been on the dole for 7 years at this point. Oh, those were the days. And I was desperate to make comedy and writing my living. That was my dream. So I sold everything I owned. I took a loan out from the DSS for a new cooker and headed north. In our first week at the festival, we played this hour of comedy to an average of 3 people a day. In fact, we played to so many empty seats, we were in danger of becoming Ipswich Town players. You can have that one for free. But then we got a great review. The show sold out. We signed to a London agent, and 2 months later, October 1997, we found ourselves on BBC One, Saturday night, performing our sketches on the stand-up show with Ardal O'Hanlon. And most poignantly for me, the very same month, October 1997, we made the first of many appearances on Radio 4's Loose Ends with Ned Sherrin. The same show I heard on the radio, I found on the rubbish dump 12 years before. Now, I never got to go back to Yarmouth to say, I told you so, to my stepdad, because he died 8 months before I made it onto TV. Not only could he not bear to see me on stage, he'd rather die than see me on television. But as they say, living well is the best revenge. And I've been lucky enough to make a living from the arts ever since. I've written plays, stage shows, radio series, and jokes for some of the biggest comedy shows on TV. I've performed comedy all over the world, met most of my comedy heroes, and I've been lucky enough to write for some of them and share a stage with 1 or 2 others. And now in Norwich, the Nimmo Twins are currently celebrating our 25th anniversary, which is amazing to me, considering we just got together to make a little bit of beer money. Now, I can admit there were times, even in the run of shows we did last month at the Playhouse, that I'd be backstage feeling depressed and anxious. But once I was on stage, those feelings completely disappeared. And making people laugh really is a medicine to me. Forget Prozac, sertraline, Zoloft. If you really want to boost your serotonin, stand in front of 300 people a night doing knob gags. That's my advice. But I'm also aware that culture on its own isn't a magic bullet for my mental health. Part of the reason I wanted to write this speech and to give it to you today was as a distraction. I've been suffering from a bout of prolonged anxiety for the last few months, and it's made life difficult, sad, exhausting, and sometimes hopeless. But I've kept writing and performing because it always helps, and I know that this too shall pass. So just like that shy 10-year-old, that terrified 15-year-old, that lost and drifting 24-year-old, this battered 51-year-old can still find solace, comfort, faith, and escape in creativity and the arts. So there we go. That's a very long answer to the question, what has culture done for me? In short, it's given my life meaning and direction. It's given me an incredible community of like-minded people. It's furnished me with a career I could only have dreamed about when I was struggling and signing on the dole in the 1990s. And it's given me decades of joy, inspiration, challenge, pride, pleasure, and incredible audiences. Now, I don't need to tell you what life without culture feels like, because we've all experienced it in the last 2 years. Lockdowns closed our theatres and music venues first and opened them up last. And how grey, how empty, how pointless life felt without being able to watch a show or dance and sing your heart out at a gig, laugh at a comedian, or just be in communion with strangers. If it's true you don't know what you've got till it's gone, it's also true you don't know what you've lost until you get it back. For me, the joy of being able to step on stage again has been absolutely incredible. The feeling of playing to a packed theatre after 2 long, bleak and exhausting years has meant everything to me. And judging by the emails and messages I've received, it's meant as much to you who came and, thank God, actually laughed. Because whatever this current government might think and display, culture is not a luxury. Culture is not the cherry on the cake. Culture is the cake. It is an absolute necessity. After the last 2 years, one thing we can all know for certain is that life without culture is life with all the life taken out. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, my own life before I found culture was life with all the life taken out. Now tonight, thanks to the wonderful people at Love Light Norwich, this beautiful city of ours will be transformed. There'll be illuminated sculptures which will dazzle the people of Norfolk and no doubt be worshipped as gods by the people from Mulbarton. There'll be laser shows and installations across the city. The grey stone of Norwich Cathedral, St Andrew's Plain and Norwich Castle will be ablaze with colour. The ordinary and everyday will be imbued with magic and wonder. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what culture did to me. And that's what culture does to all of us. It makes life beautiful. It makes it bright. It makes it dazzling. It puts a technicolor sheen on all our existence. It takes us out of ourselves, away from the boring and the everyday. And whether it's comedy, drama, dance, music, poetry, film, art, and yes, even mime, it inspires and elevates us. Culture and art shines a light on life, and in that light, we find ourselves reflected back. Thank you for listening. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you. So, I don't know if we're doing a Q&A or not. If there's no questions, we can all go to the pub. We'll give everyone a chance. We'll give a chance, yeah. Oh, hello.
Do a microphone? So everyone else can hear you. Hi, Karl. That was very entertaining. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, it's interesting how you moved from Bungay to Great Yarmouth and then came to the Great Lights of Norwich.
Yes.
You've obviously been to lots of other places, but you've still chosen to base yourself here. Have you ever been tempted to go elsewhere?
Well, I live in London at the moment. I do live in London at the moment.
You always seem to be here, which is
but I am here a lot. Yeah, I mean, the shows are based here. There was a point where I did want to do national stuff. The Nimmos just played all over the world. We played in New York, played in Singapore, and everywhere. And then it made sense to just do it here. So that's where I've ended up. It wasn't through design. It was through poverty. So.
Karl, rumour has it that the internet has made it to Bungay, and I wondered if internet and the culture would have made a difference to the 17-year-old Karl. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, God, yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, the amount of art and that you could just access at the press of a button now is incredible. I mean, it's everything. The entire world of creativity is at your fingertips. Back then, we'd speak in sort of hushed wonder that there might be a Betamax going round of A Clockwork Orange or some documentary about Derek Jarman that someone had taped 12 years before. Whereas now you just go, and it's there. It would have made a huge difference. I mean, for me, the radio, that little radio that I found, was the internet. It was the one thing that I had control over. I didn't have control over the TV or anything else in the house, but I had this radio in my bedroom. And so for me, Radio 4 and all the other little stuff I found on it was the internet. But yeah, God, yeah, it would have been an amazing experience. And I'm sure for young people now, if they're out in the sticks or they're not in lives similar to mine, but they feel detached from the arts, the fact that you can just press a button and be inspired and meet your heroes on a screen is incredible. So yeah, thank you. Caroline Richardson.
Can you tell us a little bit about your next Norwich show?
Oh, God, yeah. That was a cynical attempt at getting a plug. And the new Nimmo Twins show, which is our 25th anniversary show, which is called Halt, Who Goes There? Is on at the Playhouse from August the 3rd to the 21st. Tickets are on sale now from norwichtheatre.org, I think. Isn't that right? Fantastic. There we go. That was shameless, Caroline. Get out.
Hi, Karl. You've made a career out of insulting people from Mulbarton and Newmarket Road.
Yeah.
But I just wonder how being a comedy writer has changed, perhaps in even the last 2 or 3 years, in a culture where the wrong joke can see you cancelled for good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tricky path. I mean, obviously, we all probably know the Jimmy Carr story at the moment. I mean, that joke, I mean, I've met Jimmy a few times, but that joke is indefensible, however ways you want to cut it. You just, I don't quite know what he was thinking in terms of, I think his thing of, I'll justify it afterwards by saying, I'll talk about the the Gypsies and the Holocaust isn't enough. The most interesting thing he could have done about that was, to cut it completely. He should never have done it. But it is become, it's become not trickier. I think what it's done for every comedy writer, it's made you think a bit more. You have to think about who's the joke aimed at, what are the victims, can you justify it? And also, just as a male middle-aged white writer in writers' rooms for the last 18 years, it's been fantastic for there's now diversity in writing rooms, which there never was when I started. It was blokes, just big blokes eating digestives, who were all white and middle-aged, and now, everybody's there, and it's long overdue. But yeah, I think I don't want to get, I'm a conscientious objector in the culture war. I don't want to get involved. I think it's down to the individual comedy writer, but I think if it makes any writer, anyone that is on stage and has responsibility and has an audience, if it makes them think a little bit more about the jokes, who the victim of the jokes, and the subjects you're writing about, I think it's a good thing. But yes, it has become, it's a profession you now have to think about a bit more, and that's probably a good thing. So. That's it. Oh, one more.
First of all, thank you so much. Very amusing. 2 questions, one shorter than the other. Have you ever been in City Hall?
I have, yeah.
And you must come along sometime and see the serious side of it.
Absolutely.
That's another thing.
Is there a serious side to it?
Well, it's got a very big budget, and it looks after some of the poorest people in the country.
Of course.
Which is the bigger question I wanted to come to. And I want to hold you in a place and see if you just tease apart a little that issue, which is so important, of the change required within a closed community for someone to break out against incredibly strong forces, which are understandable, particularly among very poor societies. Things like, that's not for the likes of us.
Yeah.
Posh people do that. It's a kind of a defense mechanism. It's a way of dealing with things they don't know, and yet it's so important that we help communities like that to break out. And as a councillor, I've got one of the poorest wards. Well, again, in the country, I've got one estate, which is, Tower Hamlets kind of level. And so that's a big task for us to do that. And I'd like a little bit more reflection, if I may, about how that stepfather of yours might be educated so that he felt able to let you do what you wanted to do.
Well, on a personal level, I don't think he could have been. He was, I genuinely don't think he could have been. He's in a landscape I wasn't party to. I really don't know what's going on. But in terms of poverty and people being drawn to the arts, obviously I came from that. I mean, we had no money at all. It was real underclass. But I knew that I was interested in it. I think we've got Siobhan from the Common Lot here today. The Common Lot, I know, are working on the Mile Cross to do exactly what you're talking about. They're taking arts and culture to people that probably maybe are estranged from it or don't have access to it. Because when I was growing up, as I said, the idea of being involved in the arts and theatre, it felt like it was rooms like this with gold and red velvet, and it felt educated, and I didn't have that education. I think the people that create arts, and I'm sure the people that have spoken here today, is about taking it to them, not forcing it on them, because that can become a bit kind of colonial and patronizing, going, you must love the arts, darling, because that's a great way to alienate people. What you do, I think, is set up a stall and say, if you're interested, this is how you can get into it. And within a tower block or a housing estate or whatever, you will find people. You're not going to find everybody, but you'll find a percentage, like in every society, in every group of people, who think, well, there's something in me. I don't know what it is, but I feel I've got a voice. I want to paint, I want to draw, I want to act, I want to play music, I want whatever it is. I think it's about making the steps to that landscape feel a bit easier. At the moment, it can feel like a mountain. It did to me, and it's got to feel like a path and a wide path, which is come on in. So in terms of the budget and stuff, I mean, the technicalities that I don't know, but I know that the arts are always the first to get pumped by government and the funding that goes away. But we need to go into communities, and I think that's what the Common Lot should be applauded for doing. They've gone into the Marcross, they've set up, you've got an allotment there, haven't you? And you're also doing community things where you're basically that. It's not going, this is the arts, love it. It's going, we're here and come into it. And I think if that happens in the poorest wards of Norwich, similar little things like that, it's a way of bringing people in. To me, yeah, it was basically making the arts feel less scary, less hidebound, and make it feel like the arts is for all, because it absolutely is. The problem is at the moment, there's a lot of middle-class people involved in music in particular and acting. You've got your Hiddlestons and your Cumberbatches who are wonderful, but there has been a dearth, which is being spoken about, of working-class voices in all parts of the arts. I don't have the answer to that, but I know that on a granular level, that's what you do. You go into the poorest estates and you say, this is the arts, and this is the path to it. So that's about as informed as I can give.
Hiya, that
Hello.
was awesome. Thank you for keeping us captive for 15 minutes.
I hope so, thank you.
The mother and sister joke was amazing. I come from Guernsey, so I felt that one in my bones.
Yep.
But you mentioned that you really liked the fruit machine joke when you said it. I wondered, just out of interest, what's your favourite joke that either you've ever written or anyone's ever written? I would love to end on a joke, basically.
Oh, God, do you know what?
So
It put me
fun.
on the spot. I can't, do you know what? I'm not going to
It was
to
an
remember
unfair
that now.
question. I
No.
apologise.
But finally, I did used to make fruit machines. That's the other thing in Yarmouth. That's what I got kicked out of college to do. I ended up making fruit machines or printing fruit machines in a factory for, it was 3.5 years. If I'd had a bit more warning, I could have thought about it. Now I'm on the spot. I can't think of it.
apologise
I'm going to say,
sincerely.
okay, that is my favourite joke I've ever written. is
Excellent.
that
Thank you very
joke.
much.
It is a work of genius. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Karl there. An absolutely amazing speech and an amazing written bit, and so glad that we'd encouraged you and twisted your arm to come and do the piece against your better judgment. I would also say probably one of the things that it reflected on myself is the value of the bid putting on these sorts of activities in a city that are free. So it allows anyone of any income or any situation to be able to come in. And one of the things that the business community has been keen on to support these sorts of events across all different spectrums of culture is to make them free and accessible for anyone. And I think that's the real value of it. And we do it with lots of the different arts and cultural activities that we do. And it's a huge value to us as a city to be able to do that. And I think if it inspires the next generation of people to be able to come out, whichever element, whether it's light, sculpture, art, drama, comedy, whichever it is, we should continue to put those pieces on and inspire our city to be able to be part of that. It falls to me to try and drag some summary out of today, which is obviously a huge diversity of speakers. So thanks to all of you who have taken the time and effort to be able to put that forward. I mercilessly myself decided that now that I've got some darkness, I'm going to show the pretty pictures that I had just so that we can go through it, because if I spent the time doing it, I just really felt it was nice to be able to visualize what I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to do it whether it's true or not. This is Nicosidus. This is the cathedral, and it's coming back again. The Norwich Puppet Theatre and the Cycles are doing the art piece. This is Illuminos, and this is Cupid's Castle that will be animating the city landscape over tonight and Saturday. Nicola, and I'm not sure now, enunciation as I was adjusted, whether it's Dich or Dich, she's doing the mobile light, and that is the projections that are drawn by hand instantly onto the roof of St Andrew's Hall now, rather than the sides of buildings. This will be a similar ice sculpture with light. Here is what I tried to describe as a very light octopus on top of a man. Makes a lot more sense when you've got a visualization of it than my description, so hopefully that does it a bit more justice. Again, obviously we've heard from the PRICKIMAGE and the Bleu. Greg Holloway doing the Light Seed last time and doing another installation for this one as well. And finally, this will be me on Saturday doing my stewarding to Piff Paff, which is the celestial sound, which will alter the sound in response to lighten the audience there. I'd like to thank everyone. I think go through my list. I have a formal piece that my team said that you need to make sure you do this properly. So here we go. Love Light, our thanks. We're really proud to see Love Light Norwich come to life, bringing so many people and organisations together from across the city and beyond. This wouldn't have been possible without the public funding from the Arts Council in England through the National Project Grants Programme. We firmly believe that excellent arts and cultural activity can change the way people feel about the place they live in, can build connections within and between people and their communities. By running this festival at the beginning of the year, by looking at the theme of love and belonging together, we're using arts as a platform for people to reconsider their relationship to each other and the city. A festival cannot change everything, but it does show glimpses of what things can be like. From our point of view, this is a fantastic creative achievement with art and communities at the heart of it. The BID and the Arts Council England working in partnership with many other cultural institutions across the city. We want to give particular thanks to all our sponsors who have taken a leap of faith supporting the festival, especially as we're coming out of lockdown. And special thanks go to the Norwich City Council, Norfolk County Council, and specifically the Experience Project funded by the EU, the Forum Trust, the NUA, Artlist, who are sponsored today. Thank you very much again. Cycling UK, FSG Signs and Graphic, all of whose input has been greatly appreciated and help us shape our festival, as well as ARC, Norwich Cathedral and the Norwich Theatre. We'd also like to give thanks to our creative partners who have helped us deliver our community engagement projects. So the Norwich Puppet Theatre, True Stories, Norwich Arts Centre, Norwich Centre for Writing, the Sheridan Little Theatre, the Garage, Norwich Historic Church Trust and the Norwich School. We of course could not do this without the artists. And we've heard from many of them today who have inspired us, and hopefully we'll take the chance to go out and see all those different installations and art pieces across the city. It's a diverse programme. It's fantastic to see local artists presented alongside the international artists. So thank you to all of them. We also wanted to thank the Love Light and the Norwich BID team who have worked to pull the festival together, some of whom are here today, and others who are out working feverishly to make sure that all the art installations are ready to go. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to everyone who's here today. And that is me done. Thank you very much.